Edexcel AS Business Studies Revision Screencast 2, Unit 1.3.2, Identifying a Business Opportunity. In this unit, you need to know what makes a market, the relationship between price, supply and demand, how demand and supply interact in the market, factors affecting supply, factors affecting demand, and the benefits of being market oriented. So, first of all, what is a market? Well, a market isn't necessarily something you go to on a Saturday afternoon. It's any medium through which buyers and sellers can reach agreement to trade at a price. So these days, a market could take place via a mobile phone app, via the internet, via the phone, catalogue, in a shop and in a marketplace. And markets are quite often not located in a specific location. But a deal then takes place when both the buyer and the seller are ready to exchange something at a price they can both agree on. So supply refers to businesses selling products or services, and the higher the price, the more willing and able a business will be to sell at the current market price. So the higher the price, the higher the profit margin a business will make on each unit that it sells, so they'll be more willing to supply to the market. They'll try to sell a higher quantity at the higher price so they can get more profit margin on each unit they sell. Because of this, we see a positive correlation between price and quantity, and the supply curve is upward sloping from left to right. We see the opposite relationship with demand, and demand refers to customers buying products or services. With customers, the higher the price, the less willing and able customers are to buy. This might be because they don't have the money if the price is too high, or because they don't think the product or service is worth the money, so they're not prepared to spend. So with demand, we see a downward sloping curve from left to right, a negative correlation between price and quantity. So in a market, whatever format that might take, we're looking at the interaction between demand and supply. We're looking for the equilibrium, the point at which demand and supply meet. So on this diagram you can see it's labelled with an E. And this is also known as the market clearing price, because at any price other than this point there will be either excess supply or excess demand. So let's look at an example. This is a demand and supply schedule for oil. So we can see the market equilibrium is 60 million barrels per day at a price of $15 per unit. If we have a price that's higher than this, okay, so higher than 15, we can see that there is going to be more supply than there is demand. So at each of these price points, supply is higher than demand. So we see excess supply. So there are barrels of oil that suppliers can't sell. At a price below $15, we see excess demand. So here we see demand is higher than supply. Okay, so we've got a shortage at this point because customers can't buy all of the products that they want. So the only point at which the buyers and suppliers agree is this $15 per barrel, and that's our market equilibrium. So on a diagram, we would see excess demand at any price below the equilibrium. Okay, so if we take this price here of $10 per barrel, we can see that supply is just over 40 barrels, and the quantity demanded is just, is probably slightly over 70 million barrels per week. So we've got more demand than we have supply, so we've got excess supply. And obviously the closer we get to the equilibrium, the smaller the excess of demand is, but we still do have this excess demand. If we've got a price higher than $15 per barrel, we see excess supply. Okay, so here we see the quantity that suppliers want to sell is higher than the quantity that customers want to buy. So we see this excess supply, and this would result in businesses having barrels of oil that they've not been able to sell. So the temptation would then be for them to lower their price so they can sell their stock, and that gets us closer to the equilibrium price of $15 per barrel. However, there are factors other than price that affect the quantity that businesses are prepared to supply and customers are prepared to buy, and that's what we're going to look at now. So factors affecting supply that are not related to price are these four here. Weather. So weather, if there was a really sunny summer, fingers crossed, then some crops are going to do really very well. So we might have a bumper crop of strawberries, for example. So this would increase our supply of strawberries. So if we look at our diagram at the bottom, a really good summer would increase the number of strawberries that a business has to sell. Now this causes a shift in the supply curve because the weather and this bumper crop that results is not due to a change in price. So suppliers might be happy with the current equilibrium price but just want to sell more strawberries. Okay, so this would shift the supply curve out to the right. Now we would be at this point, okay, which would be at disequilibrium. So even though we're still at the original equilibrium price, that price only results in this quantity of strawberries being bought. So if suppliers want to sell more strawberries, they have to lower the price, and that puts us back into our new equilibrium where D meets S1. Technology might also affect supply. So if a business is able to sell more, create more products because of a faster machine, for example, they again might be able to sell more to the market and want to sell more at the current market price. So again we might see an increase in supply, so this S to S1. If they want to actually sell all the stock they can now produce with their new machine, they may have to lower the price. Legislation might increase costs for a business. So for example, if there are more regulations to do with health and safety, that might result in more training, more equipment needed, so increase a business's costs, in which case they might feel less willing and able to supply at the current market price. So that might cause a decrease in supply. Okay, so if they're less willing and able to supply at the current market price because their costs are now higher, then we might end up seeing, kind of prices starting to rise and businesses selling slightly less. Finally, our business objectives. For example, if a business had an objective to increase their market share, it might be that they are wanting to supply more to the market and are happy to accept a slightly lower price in order to gain customers off their competitors. So these four factors would all cause a shift in the supply curve because they relate to something other than price. If we look at the demand side of things now, these are factors that affect demand that again are not to do with price. So for example, season. In April, it's very showery at the moment, so there might be more people wanting to buy umbrellas. So we might see an increase in demand for umbrellas. So we might see the shift in demand from D to D1, and therefore businesses would see that more people were trying to buy umbrellas, and they might supply more to the market, but might also take advantage of that increase in demand by slightly raising their prices. So we'd see an increase in demand from D to D1 and a new equilibrium where S meets D1 at a slightly higher price and a slightly higher quantity. So people are now all able to buy an umbrella, but they are slightly more expensive. Fashion also affects demand. So if we think about something that has gone out of fashion, for example, so think about Croc shoes, okay, that were really popular a couple of years back. People don't really want to buy those now. Some people buy them, I suppose they're quite useful on holiday, but generally speaking people are not really interested in buying and wearing Crocs. So even though the price hadn't changed, we saw a decrease in demand from D to D1, and businesses would then see that they've got Crocs shoes left and stock they can't sell. So the temptation then is to lower the price. Okay, so we'd see our businesses selling less Crocs and the ones they were selling at a lower price. Obviously, if something becomes fashionable, we would see an increase in demand and see the opposite thing happen. Income can also affect demand. So if people feel more well off, so if there is an increase in the minimum wage, for example, that might give a lot of people a lot more money to spend, in which case they might demand more products because they have more money to spend. So not necessarily a change in price, but a change in income would cause a shift in the demand curve. Price of rival goods. So if a competitor's products become very cheap, that would cause a decrease in demand for a business, and not due to their price but due to the price of their rival goods. Price of complementary goods. So if something becomes very cheap, so for example, if oh, actually, let's think about holidays. So there's the sort of price of holidays, particularly with a fuel duty, making holidays much more expensive. So we might see fewer people buying things like sun cream. That's a complementary good. When you go on abroad on holiday, you tend to need sun cream, so if fewer people are going on board, there will be less demand for sun cream. Changes in the population. If there are, population is getting older, so we're seeing more people, kind of more elderly people, the products that they are going to demand is going to change. So we might see an increase in demand for stair lifts, for example, to allow people to stay in their own home. Legislation. The idea of the smoking ban was to deter people from smoking in public places, so we would expect to see a decrease in demand for cigarettes because it's more difficult now for people to find somewhere to smoke. So with all of these kind of diagrams, the key thing to do is to start with demand and supply in equilibrium, then decide what change has happened. Decide whether that change relates to demand or supply, first of all, so you know which curve you are going to shift, and then decide if that change is actually an increase or a decrease, and then you can move the appropriate curve right for an increase and left for a decrease. Then you need to show the new equilibrium, so show the original equilibrium and the new equilibrium after you've made a shift in the curve. And that's how you would use a diagram to explain or answer an exam question. Finally, market orientation. This means a business will react to what customers want. So if customers are demanding more umbrellas because there is a lot of rain, then businesses will try to sell more umbrellas so that customers can buy them. So that's a very basic example, but it's about making decisions that are based around information about customers' needs and wants rather than what the business thinks is right for the customer. And most successful businesses take a market-oriented approach, and the way they find out what customers want is through market research, and that's what we're going to be looking at in the next screencast. So I hope you found this useful. Good luck with your revision and your exam, and thank you for listening.